game comes out that's this feature-packed, this much fun to play, and this polished, it's pretty hard to get too upset, even if the additions in this year's model aren't that much of an improvement from last year's game. I'm talking about NBA 2K21 from Visual Concepts and 2K Sports. I checked this out on the PlayStation 4 and also Google Stadia. I was provided codes by Google and by 2K, and I primarily stuck to the PlayStation 4 Pro because my Google Stadia experience was really a letdown this time, and I don't know what the hell it was, but I could not get a stable connection, and so I was dealing with all kinds of chop. And one of the major features in this year's game is the tweaks that they've done to the shooting model, which really kind of push you towards using the right analog thumbstick to not just, lean back and then release the shot, but also to aim by pressing in different directions. So the finite precision is so timing based. It's really challenging, particularly when I was playing my career mode. I just found that playing on Stadia was just too frustrating. It looked good when it was working, and then some kind of weird fumble would happen and things would speed up or slow down or get all sort of grainy. It was just problematic. And I think what's gone on is that our household, everybody is stuck at home, and so it really impacted the performance and the play of experiencing this game on Stadia, which is kind of an eye-opener for me because last year's NBA 2K20, I actually had lots of games on Stadia and it was really, really smooth. So 2K21, for whatever reason, I just could not have a good time on Stadia. Now, I had a terrific time diving into the PlayStation 4 version of this game, and it's taken me a little while to get to this commentary, this review, because I've really sunk in. There's a lot of stuff in here. You've got the My Career mode. You've got all of the different Play Now modes, including being able to jump in and play in the WNBA or on the blacktop surfaces. Of course, you can visit your neighborhood and play on the beach and accentuate your custom-created player any way that you want to. You've got a GM mode in here. You've got all of the online stuff, the My Team mode, where you're getting all the playing cards and assembling the perfect team that you want to. You can play with classic teams, so it's super fun to pit the 90s Chicago Bulls against the 80s Boston Celtics, and then you can mix and match from all of these different modes. There's also all kinds of super arcadey elements in here, whether you're playing on the blacktop or you're playing in the neighborhood courts, and they've got little bouncy surfaces where you can play against other players. And there are story elements, whether you're in My Career or you're having conversations with different players in the My GM mode. So it's really a jam-packed product. It is a massive, massive game. It's not just one thing. That's the thing about NBA 2K21. But what I definitely did have to kind of come to terms with again this year is how much VC is a part of the experience, particularly when you get into any kind of an online competition setting, which I did. I played some regular pro NBA games, but I also played some street hoops against other players that had some pretty spectacular ratings. And what comes into question every year around this franchise is whether people have been grinding to beef up their skills, because that's what you do. You take your virtual currency that you earn from in-game accomplishments and you spend that on the performance boosts and tweaking all of your stats basically to level up your player in the direction that you want to, whether it's in shooting and finishing moves and play calling and dribbling, whatever you want to choose to kind of augment, you can do that, with ultimately the goal to get some pretty heavy above 90 stats. But I kept running into players that were full on 99, and this is in the first couple of weeks of the game, right? Like this is it's been out for a couple of weeks, but it's really just launched, and people have already just gobbled it all up, and they are amazing on the court. And of course, what people can do is they can just spend real money on top of the full price that this game costs and just throw all of that VC right at their stats so that they are awesome and they start making a lot more of their shots. I've definitely recognized that before. I think what's happened is that I really enjoyed getting to know this game, because what 2K did is they put a huge emphasis on basically retraining you for shooting, and that really comes into play when you start My Career Mode, because of course you're terrible when you start My Career Mode, and the shooting is tougher because it's all about where you place the thumbstick, and your timing is so precise in the thing. When you go up for those shots, and I was really bouncing back and forth from the face buttons on the PlayStation 4 controller to using the thumbstick to see where some of the inspiration for this new modeling kind of came from, for the gameplay modeling that they've done there. And I dug it, but it was really a beatdown to begin with. It took me a while to overcome it. I even tweeted, I even said, look, man, I would love to make any one of these shots, because every time I was going up, and granted, this is a game about positioning, and I think more so than any other iteration of NBA 2K, this is really about where your feet are and how much distance you've created from your defender before you're going to be able to actually knock down those shots, if your stats aren't that great. And that's what happens, is of course, you power through, you learn the fundamentals, and you become, in My Career Mode, you become a better passer and you become a better playmaker. I was a point guard as my character, so that was something that I wanted to lean into anyway. And then suddenly you can start to spend those attributes and you start to knock down some more of those shots. You can also add in all of these different badges that are basically buffs for your player, and suddenly your prowess and your confidence on the court starts to really kind of come into focus, which I really appreciated. I found myself, I dig the novelty of thumbstick shooting, as well as all the amazing thumbstick dribbling maneuvers that you can pull off. It's great. But when it came to shooting, I kind of defaulted to what I have learned over so many years of playing video game basketball. I stuck to the buttons for the most part and kind of left it to timing. I toggled on choosing whether it was going to be my players' percentile points, whether I was going to have aiming be a part of the proposition there, or just leave it all up to timing. I tried a bunch of different things, and I kind of got into the groove, is basically what I'm telling you. And I appreciated that it took me a while to get into the groove. I also appreciated that I became so entrenched and had so much fun diving into the storytelling, which I always appreciate in these massive sports games, when we have all of these actors and writers and stuff sort of collaborate to take us into the reason why this player that you are inhabiting has the passion and the drive and the skills to go pro. And this one is populated by Jesse Williams and Jamon Hunshu and Michael K. Williams. There's some really great actors in here, and every once in a while they pop up. I noticed Mireille Enos from The Killing plays this sharky super agent in there, and all of these different faces that are you're familiar with all of a sudden are in your basketball game. I always appreciate that. I always dig it. I like the investment in that direction, because it kind of illustrates the cultural resonance of professional basketball and how much it means outside of the action on the court. And I like that 2K invests in that. But I feel like 2K has invested in better stories that are a little more ambitious, maybe not as technically proficient, maybe not as nuanced in terms of focus testing and recognizing what players really want, because obviously when you're in My Career Mode, you want to get to the games and to the practices and the drills to beef up your performance as quickly as possible. But I really appreciated that, and I found it so consuming that it actually took me a little while to transition back to controlling a whole team and bouncing from player to player, because I was so used to just being one player on the court and figuring out my positioning and getting open for passes and some quick passes across the court. Once I would play, in a regular sort of NBA game or a WNBA game, and having to bounce between the different players and trying to set up alley-oops and things like that, it's like you're refocusing and rejiggering how you're playing the game. And the same thing happens when you go onto the blacktop mode, or when you go into the neighborhoods, or even if you play, like the triple threats in My Team. And I did get into My Team a little bit, and I think what's happened this year is because I've spent so much time experimenting and playing all of these different modes, I actually did gravitate to a little bit more online play than I normally do, because there's enough just to sit around and play single player or to play locally with other people. I'm trying to get my kid to pick up the controller and play some basketball with me, but she's not quite there yet. But this is a weird year where nobody can kind of hang out, So I did get online and play some multiplayer, and that's when it really slapped me across the face, like I know it slaps a lot of you across the face, this VC thing that you can spend money, real money, on this fake money so that you can throw it at stats. That's terrible. It's got to go. And it's so heinous, and it's so much a part of the way that sports games prop themselves up, and companies like 2K can spend all of the money that it earns, a fraction of that mass amount of money that it earns, embellishing their product so it has all of these different modes. And I get that churn. I get the business decisions around it. But it's BS. I really hope that we slowly transition away from that, and that every statistical sort of performance boost in a video game, a sports video game like this, is earned by playing the game. And it's complete parity and fair for everybody. But that's just not the case. You know that you're playing against sharks when you get into the online pool, and it sucks. But other than that, I don't really have a lot to complain about. I feel like it's not a massive step forward in terms of features and extras. There's no shocking new elements in the gameplay. I think the biggest thing to overcome is just how to deal with the new shooting. But as I'm recording this, this thing has already been patched, and I'm sure it's still going to get tweaked and patched some more to make it a little bit more accommodating for everybody out there. I would say that it is so feature-laden, and the menus are so convoluted, and there's so many different directions that a player can go in when they boot this thing up. I would imagine this to be very overwhelming for people that don't follow this game every year. And I think that's something that 2K needs to kind of address, because we're going into a new generation of players now with the next generation of consoles. And they don't need to just be the hardcore basketball fanatics game. I mean, there's a lot of game in NBA 2K21 and the NBA 2K series in general that's very accessible and very fun for all levels of play, but it seems very much like it's buried under all of this data and information, including the 2K TV show. All of this stuff is popping up like crazy, and of course, a lot of it is banner advertisements for how you can earn and spend your VC on cooler clothing or tattoos or designing your own shoes. Like, the whole marketplace schematic for this thing is unbelievable. It does feel to me it is absolutely worth the investment, that sort of baseline full price to buy this game. It feels like it's worth it to me. And the way that I would justify this, as a hoops fan that doesn't really have time to follow all of the modern day games, the actual real sport, this is like buying a ticket to go and see one of those games, and you get all of the energy and the personality from the NBA injected into the game through interviews and through even in-game interviews, which I always thought it was really cool. Every time they would pop up, they've animated the players, and they look really damn good. I know that this is the end of this gen. Next gen's got to knock us out. And maybe that's why this game doesn't have all of the AAA sparkle dust on it to kind of shock us with something super brand new. A lot of that's being saved for the next gen. But this still looks amazing. The detail in my neighborhood with the palm trees and the sunsets, all of the court stuff. I love the fans are holding up giant heads to support the players that they love. I like all the camera shakes when the home team is trying to force a missed shot on a free throw. The halftime shows, the cheerleaders, the mascot stuff that's going on. There is just so much eye candy. And the audio is incredible in this as well. It's amazing to me, though, that that's become ho-hum. The amount of effort and production polish and the amount of features that are included in this game at the base price, at the base level, has become kind of tedious because 2K kind of kills it every single year with a new edition of this. But you know what? I think that is analogous to the real league as well. And that's kind of where I sit with all this. If you're a fan of basketball and you have followed or you do follow the NBA or WNBA culture and you watch the games and you know some of these teams, this is a great partner. It's a great pairing with that. Yes, it could shock us and surprise us with more, but my question to the fans that deride the level of effort that 2K puts into this game every year is, how much does the actual real life sport of NBA basketball or WNBA basketball really change that much from year to year? And honestly, if we've been following sports games for a long time, we know that the transitions really happen to kind of shocking new heights at the end of every console transition. That was true from, the Sega Genesis to going into the PlayStation era and then going to PlayStation 2. And it just is a cyclical thing. And we know that this next gen, there's going to be a lot of expectations. And based on the success of what 2K has been able to do through this console generation, I think we're going to get some really nice surprises when we see NBA 2K21 on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. But listen, I think this game is amazing. amazing. It's totally packed with wonderful content for you to kind of navigate through as a single player. It's definitely super fun to jump up online, but I would say try your best to avoid all of the extra glitter that 2K is trying to sell you. You don't need to do that to have a great time. I think just earn your way and do your best to play with people that you know and try to keep it a level playing field, because the core systems and the core mechanics and the core offerings in this game are phenomenal. It is an awesome basketball experience. It's still my favorite sports series, mostly because basketball is my favorite sport, and I think that this is so well represented. I'm going to give NBA 2K21 a 9 out of 10.